Hey, I'm Jeff Taryn, and you're watching Taking Stock.
Truly iconic trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange, everyone's favorite time of day and everyone's favorite day of the week. Friday is here. Peter Tuchman, the Einstein of Wall Street. All-time highs for the small caps.
Yeah.
That stands out to me, given outperformance. But what did you see in the tape today?
You know what, look, if you look at every day, literally for the last 2 weeks, the advance versus declines have been 50-50 down. Whether we've been up 500 or down 500, that shows rotation, right? People getting out of there, outperformers getting into small cap, mid cap, that's where the value is, right? Everything else is so highly inflated. 86% of the S&P have beat. Even taking into account the fact that we're talking about a quarter where we were in the midst of a major war, right, with the Middle East, with $67.39 barrel of oil going all the way to 120 and then hanging out above 110, which has massive inflationary implications. So to think that energy is the best sector and mid-cap, small cap, looking for value makes sense. The fact that energy is the best performing sector with all that pressure on the energy sector over oil, it's hard to explain it. I know I look like Einstein. Sometimes I'm not that smart. I'm looking for an explanation on that one. But you know, at the end of the day, we're seeing this again. We've seen it a lot. Where we come out of the gate strong, and the market tends to fade into the afternoon. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We're still trading at record highs.
That was the take on the S&P today. Thank you for being here. As always, have a great weekend.
Nixon
5. Time for the belt. I'll let them keep cheering. That's way more fun than anything I'm going to say. The New York City Parks Department down here on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Bringing about a close. Yeah, we'll keep it going, guys. I love my job. All right, on this trading Friday, August 14th, your final tale of the tape, the S&P 500 underwater. Let's call it 0.2%. The Dow 30 in the red fractionally. The New York Stock Exchange Composite Index, folks, another all-time high in the green, 0.05%. Hey, it still counts. And the small caps, the best of the batch, up 0.5%, now up 23% on the year. The Russell 2000 outperforming every single Magnificent 7 tech stock. I don't know how many people expected that on their bingo cards for 2026. Energy, utilities, materials, the outperformers in the S&P, and your sector laggards, tech, healthcare, and consumer discretionary. To the Dow we go. Chevron, Disney, and UNH, the big winners. A lot more on Chevron's big day and big year in just a few moments. Salesforce, Cisco, IBM, your Dow laggards. Most of the Mag 7 names underwater today. A bit of outperformance from Tesla, Amazon, the worst of the bunch. Oil prices rising a bit on the day. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warning of, in his words, economic isolation of Iran. We saw the airlines and the cruise lines under pressure in response in today's session. And the VIX reaching its lowest level going all the way back to December 30th of 2025. The VIX reaching its lowest level of 2026 earlier today. Let's bring in our good friend Dale Smothers, CEO and founder at RDS Wealth. My man.
What's up, JD?
Great to see you
Good
here.
to see you, brother.
I feel like all week the market was trying to find its identity, but you go through the numbers, you're like, there's actually a lot of shiny things to talk about. There's a lot of excitement. Let's start your take more broadly on earnings season. Obviously, we're through the financials. We're through most of the mega caps.
Sure.
We get some really interesting retail names next week. On the 26th is the big dog, Jensen Huang and NVIDIA.
You're right.
What do you take of what we've seen so far?
NVIDIA holds all the cards, in my opinion, and the reality is earnings have been the reason that we continue to bid higher in spite of stubborn inflation, little weaker labor market. We see earnings continue to basically bring the ladder with them as this market continues to climb the wall of worry. Earnings have been incredible this season. Again, the 7th consecutive quarter of double-digit earnings on the S&P 500. You just can't ask for anything better than that, and it's exactly why I think that the S&P 500 hits an 8,000 price point. We've been talking about that, JD, together for quite a while, even in the dips.
Yeah.
What we've seen is tech leads us to the next leg higher. There's a rotation out of tech into the broader market, and you've got the reinforcement troops, if you will, showing back up to basically hold the line. And what we're in the middle of right now, I think, is the next leg higher going to be led by tech.
I wonder how you're thinking about monetary policy out of the Fed. Let's get into the fun, splashy stuff here.
Right.
We got 3 FOMC meetings left, September, October, December. Possibility of an interest rate hike on the table, at least for that last meeting.
Sure.
How do you think the Fed approaches the inflation prints we've gotten as of late?
I think the Fed is getting breathing room right now to pause. And with the Fed chair, clearly, Kevin Warsh coming in, he wants to pause.
Yeah.
I believe that he even wants to cut, but the data will not allow him to cut. I don't think that the data supports a rise either. I don't think we see a raise in interest rates. You know, we've got a softening labor market. It's not cold. It's certainly not hot. We'll call it the Goldilocks labor market. And then from there, you've got a very stubborn inflation number. And so this wait and see how things shake out in the inflation is probably the path they take forward. I think it's a price shock from just a supply shock altogether about oil. That has clearly bled into the inflation numbers. But until we get clarity on the oil price and Iran, that whole Middle Eastern crisis, until we get clarity there, I don't think that the Fed makes any moves for fear of making the wrong one.
I think overall discretionary spending for the consumer has been a really interesting story, and we got kind of maybe a bit of a jarring piece of data today. Retail spending, retail sales falling 0.6% for July. That's a big drop.
Big drop.
And we know the difference between the so-called hard data and the soft data, how sour far too many Americans feel about the economy, but that sets the stage for names like TJX. We'll get Target, we get Walmart, we get Home Depot next week. What are you looking for out of those names after what we learned today?
Yeah, so the thing is, the earnings that we're going to hear cover the entire quarter. So what we may hear from Walmart may still be a strong number. We may still hear a good, strong TJX. I think you've got names like Walmart, though, as a consumer becomes less capable of spending money in that higher echelon shopping center. Places like Walmart might actually be the place that benefits from that. You also saw a lower consumer sentiment this morning. If you paid attention to that number, the consumer sentiment is being jostled around from one side to the next. They're saying, hey, it's great because Iran's going to be resolved, and then the Iran deal's off, so we don't know what to think. A strong consumer is a must for us to continue this rally, because earnings, again, is the reason we're up. Making sure that we have those earnings to continue stronger is going to be a must. We're putting our attention to that. We're going to keep an eye on that very closely.
I don't know how closely you end up tracking kind of the world of politics, or at least where politics and the elections for the midterms kind of crosses over with the, with market activity and pricing activity. We're about 81 days out for the midterms here, and we know a lot of voters vote on the economy. How much of that storyline is on your radar as we get closer to the elections?
It's definitely on our radar, JD. Here's what we do. For our clients, we are here to manage volatility. We work primarily with retirees, those who are close to retirement, over the 59.5 threshold. Normally we're moving money into IRA, being a little bit more conservative, and September historically is not a good month. September in the middle of a midterm election is historically not a good month, so midterms are definitely on our radar. We're taking some of our profits here from this maybe tech sector that's leading us higher. We're trimming some of those profits. We're putting them into a little bit safer, less volatile positions in brace for what's going to happen in the midterms. There will be volatility to come. We think 8,000 is going to happen by the end of the year, but I would not at all be surprised if we visit the low 7,000s on our way there.
Dale, come back and see us anytime you're here in New York, my man.
Always
Take
a
good
pleasure,
care.
JD.
Nice to see you.
Yes,
Skylar,
sir.
grab
Good to
your
see
mic. You and I will hang out soon. All right, folks, here are a few of the top analyst calls that moved the tape this morning here on Wall Street. Pardon me. Thank you, Dean. First up, Bernstein upgrading Wayfair to outperform. They say the stock has more room to run. Price target boosted to 125. Shares of Wayfair down 4% year to date. Next up, JP Morgan upgrading Fox to overweight from neutral, highlighting Fox's planned acquisition of Roku. That's a big one. Price target 82. Fox up 5% today on that particular upgrade. Finally, Morgan Stanley reiterating SpaceX with an overweight rating, saying it can maintain stickiness on the AI model frontier. $300 price target. SpaceX down today, but in positive territory so far this week. All right, let's take a look at one of the top dogs in the Dow here, Bob, and it is Chevron, up more than 1% on the day. Shares up now 22% off their July 1st lows, up 32% year to date. With its $395 billion market cap, Chevron currently the 37th largest company in the world. Average one-year price target on this stock sits at $217. That's upside potential of about 7.5% relative to today's level. Well, technical analysts can oftentimes see things in the charts that the rest of us may miss. On the J.D. Durkin Show here at the New York Stock Exchange this week, Matt Caruso, CMT, told me what he sees when he looks at the charts for names like Twilio, QQQ, and a whole lot more. Take a look. Matt, let's talk the Qs. Back near its highs, but your so-called FOMO indicator, north of 50%. What does that mean, and what do you see here?
So in this market, the real kind of, I think, bull market kicked off back in March, end of March, rather, start of April. And that's where you really get one directional momentum, like what everyone loves, but everyone's always scared to do at the beginning of the bull. As you enter into kind of the more advanced stages, as you saw maybe 4 or 5 days ago, we hit kind of like an elevated level, which is when everyone has FOMO. It looks at how everyone's been treating most stocks. That's when it's time to back away. Later in the uptrend, you have to be a lot more tactical if you don't want to get swung around by these big moves. But you can see we kind of went sideways, and this is last night's chart. And as we got back to neutral, we had the strength today to push up into new highs. So market uptrend is good, but you have to just kind of keep in mind the short-term extensions so they can be painful.
Producers, chart 2 to the NASDAQ composite we go. Market breadth, new highs versus new lows. NASDAQ itself back near record highs. How strong is the breadth that you see underneath the rally? What do you see when you look under the hood here, Matt?
Well, that's what the green bars are showing us. There's more stocks making new highs than new lows. And even more importantly than that, which, we're not going to dive into the details, but is as long as not a lot of stocks are breaking down. So you have these rotational markets. Everyone kind of gets worried, like, oh, AI's taking a break, the market's over. But as long as some new leadership takes the lead, we're okay. So this is really shown since that bottom. We've had persistently strong markets under the hood. We still have that. So whatever worry people have, until it starts to show up in stocks breaking down, you have to just kind of put that on your worry list, but not actually make it touch your position.
To chart 3 we go. High yield and junk bonds. Now it's a party, dude. I love you brought us this. Junk bonds pushing to new highs. Why is that an important risk on signal for stocks? I love this conversation because it's not something intuitively we talk a lot about, but I'm glad you brought it to us today.
This is my favorite too. Everyone will look at what the Fed's doing and all the rest. Of course, that's the core that moves things. But for the stock investor, I mean, you can look at periods where interest rates fell, like early 2008, but that was a sign of bad things. What's great about junk bonds is that they reflect both the interest rate environment, but they also then after will show like what the risk concerns are in the market. So as long as this is still strong and pushing higher, the bond market's kind of confirming there aren't any kind of elevated worries, nothing is breaking down. So basically all of my risk on tools are still saying be risk on, and the FOMO indicator is just there to kind of check me if I'm getting a little too excited in the short term in terms of positioning to kind of tactically adjust things. But the longer term, in terms of trends, despite always constant worries on the media, whether it's Iran or what else, the markets are healthy under the hood.
A quick follow-up on this. Would you expect to see something crack in the junk bonds world before we see that reflected in equities, or not necessarily?
They tend to be kind of a coincidental indicator. They'll probably break together, but I like to have both because sometimes something can trigger from the bond market first. So, you always have kind of the two important views in front of you at all times.
Chart 4 producers, if we can. TWLO, Twilio. Love talking about the stock. Just broke above its prior high around 240. Is it a leader? And if so, what makes it a leader on your bingo card, so to speak?
So I think the AI is going to be obviously the thing of our generation in terms of technology, but everyone's been just looking at the hardware stocks. You have to look at how is the AI movement going to kind of permeate everywhere else. So we have all these agents and talk of agents, and they still have to talk to human beings. So Twilio has the whole stack of where messaging can be automated, whether it's to SMS or to email or whatever you want. And so you can see it's back-to-back earnings where the company is kind of surprising to the upside. We've had these very powerful surges. So this is one that has to be on your leaders list. It's a little short-term extended. I don't like buying just right above highs, but as it consolidates here, this is, I think, setting up a really good kind of risk-reward setup and a company really benefiting from the agent rollout and maybe an indirect way people wouldn't.
Welcome back to this Friday edition of Taking Stock, live from the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Time now for the latest headlines in the world of fintech, crypto, and artificial intelligence you need to know as you head into your weekend. At this hour, the crypto majors all down for the day. Bitcoin currently trading right about in the middle of its multi-month range, still unable to break out much above 66,000. Next up, OpenAI revenue chief Denise Dresser leaving after less than a year on the job. The news comes as the company eyes a $1 trillion valuation for a potential upcoming IPO. Top executives at the firm set to meet with investors next week, with leadership departures likely in focus. And finally, Chime, now exploring a stablecoin wallet which could allow users to hold dollar-pegged stablecoins directly in the app. The project, however, still in the early proposal stage. Don't go away, a lot more Taking Stock coming up after this quick break. Welcome back to the broadcast here live on the trading floor of the big board. Tricia Shimamura joins me now. She is NYC Parks Commissioner. Really excited to see you, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having us here. We're very proud to be a part of this.
And this was an incredibly enthusiastic group for your colleagues at the Parks Department here in the city that came for the bell. What did this moment mean for you to ring the closing bell and be joined by so many of your colleagues from the department?
Sure. Well, we were actually joined not just by any colleagues, but by our parks and recreation folks, particularly our recreations and public programs folks. These are the incredible staff members who are in our parks, engaging with our young people every day. They're running our recreation centers. They are running our camping visits in the parks. They're running so much. And on Saturday, we'll be hosting our very first Parents' Night Out, where we will be watching 500 New York City kids throughout the 5 boroughs. So it was really special to be closing out the New York Stock Exchange here today with so many colleagues who are giving so much to New York.
That's incredible. We're really grateful for your time, not just to do that, but especially to join me here on the show. This has been a very hot summer here in New York City, as you know. How are you helping with things like open pools, recreation centers, trying to provide those services to New Yorkers in need?
Yeah, well, really, if you are here in the summertime, then you are outside. There's no doubt about it. And chances are, if you're at a pool, at a beach, in a park, cooling down on a splash pad, you're receiving New York City Park services. Those are all a part of our portfolio that we are very proud to run. We run lifeguard services. We are there cleaning up the parks after your barbecues. We're there hosting movies under the stars. It's all us, and we're very proud to be serving New Yorkers in this way.
Amazing events on the calendar for sure. One thing I've been wondering, a lot of New Yorkers are taking to social media. They are asking your department, they are asking Mayor Memdani for help with things like drinking fountains.
Yeah.
What has that process looked like this year? Because I'd imagine it's not enough simply to monitor those comments or those TikTok videos as they come in. You then have to take action, and it seems like you're very busy on that front.
You know, we're really excited always to be working with everyday New Yorkers to make sure that they are getting that high quality public realm that they absolutely deserve. I think that with our mayor, we're really excited to be taking that service directly to every single constituent in the city. And we're really proud. I particularly am proud of my plumbers and my other tradesmen who have taken this not as an opportunity for an excuse or not as an opportunity just to shrug and say it is what it is, but to come up with creative solutions to those problems. And I think the mayor's excited about that too.
Yeah, you mentioned plumbers and tradesmen. Who are some of the other kind of unsung heroes behind the scenes? And maybe those of us who live in the city, we commute to work, you know, we recognize and we feel the benefits of their work, and maybe we don't actually realize how much goes on behind the scenes to make what you do a reality.
Thank you so much for asking that question. I'd say definitely today we were joined by our public programs folks who, again, if you see a yellow t-shirt wearing Park Sleep in the park, that's somebody who's out there looking out for kids all summer long, who are there just to engage with kids. If you go to a pool, maybe if your kid's there, then they get a free summer meal. That's because we have our lifeguards, our pool supervisors, our filter plant operators who are there, our plumbers, our carpenters who are making every single picnic table that you're sitting at and enjoying, the folks who are cutting the grass, the folks who are cleaning 700 bathrooms throughout New York City. I can go on. And by the way, in the wintertime when it snows and you're walking along a park and you see that pavement cleared, that's because of parks too. So we're here to serve New Yorkers 365 days a year, oftentimes with jobs that you just don't see.
I have less than a minute left. So I have so many questions I wanted to ask you. This might be a really tough one. I don't know if you're allowed to give an answer. Do you have a favorite park in New York City?
I probably shouldn't say my favorite park, but what I will say is that right now, if you haven't gone to the Rockaways this summer, shame on you. You absolutely should. It's just the most fun. If you really want to see something absolutely amazing, go take a nature walk along Orchard Beach in Capellan Bay Park. It's breathtaking, and I'd say keep an eye out on our website because we're going to be announcing some additional very iconic camping sites throughout the fall where you can actually sleep outdoors under the stars, and you can create a new favorite park even
awesome.
into the fall.
I love that. Looking forward to that and much more. Tricia Shimamura, NYC Parks Commissioner, really grateful for your time. Thanks for joining us today. Don't go away. A lot more Taking Stock coming up right after this. Welcome back to the show. Money 2020's very own Scarlett Sieber sat down with Rain CEO Farouk Malik. They broke down Western Union's brand new stable card on Rain and what it could mean for the future of payments. Take a look.
Welcome back to Taking Stock. I am Scarlett Sieber, the Chief Strategy Officer here at Money 2020. And today I am so excited because I have the one, the only Farouk Malik, who is CEO and co-founder of Rain, a big, longtime friend of the Money 2020 family. So Farouk, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, you're no stranger to Money 2020, and we are so excited to have you back. We have a big announcement today, which I know everyone is eagerly anticipating. But before we get to that, what are you going to be talking about in Vegas in October?
Yeah, we're really excited about talking through the upgrade of the financial system using stablecoin and tokenized money infrastructure. The last few years at Money 2020 have been about the curiosity that institutions have around stablecoins. We're starting to see adoption and actual use cases being built out, one of which we're talking about today. And we'll be looking at unpacking a lot more of that at Money 2020.
We cannot wait for that. Well, I love announcements. I always love announcements. We have great announcements at the shows in Vegas, around the world, but we're making an exclusive announcement here today. What is the announcement, Farouk? What's the partnership announcement that you're going to tell us?
Yeah, we're really excited about announcing the Rain partnership with Western Union for the StableCard product, which is a stablecoin wallet linked to a payment card infrastructure. And we're powering that infrastructure through the back end. And we're really excited about working with the Western Union team as they roll out this new technology type to their customer base.
That is extremely exciting. And we are, know the Western Union team very well. Of course, they announced their launch of their stablecoin in Vegas last year. So love to see the evolution of that with what you're doing with them. For those of the people who are watching who are not deeply embedded in the industry like yourself and myself, what does this mean? What does this change both for Western Union and for Rain?
Historically, large legacy companies that have been around for a long time, Western Union has been around for much longer than most other people. I think they're the 18th oldest company on the New York Stock Exchange. The fact that they're exploring stablecoin infrastructure as an early adopter should demonstrate that the technology has crossed the chasm, right? With regulatory clarity coming in with Genius Act and MiCA in Europe, we're starting to see a lot of large enterprises explore, what does this mean for our business? How do we access opportunities that we wouldn't be able to access otherwise? How do we drive efficiencies that we wouldn't be able to access otherwise? And that's really the amazing part of this partnership. And this is what sort of this partnership also means.
You know this industry better than most. What does things like this mean for the broader industry of where payments is going?
Look, I think if you look at companies like Western Union, they've taken 175 years to be a global business. What we're starting to see is companies are going global earlier. They're seeing adoption earlier. Many of the largest companies in the world, whether it's fintechs or marketplaces or otherwise, or even social media apps, they're global platforms. And so stablecoins are the native currency for a global customer base. And we're starting to see a lot of that adoption coming through in the numbers.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Speaking of numbers, I have loved to watch Rain's rise, if I may say so. 30 times growth last year. That is insane. 30 times is not a small number. You process transactions in over 100 companies, to your point on the globality of all of this. What does, sitting here as the CEO and co-founder, what does Rain look like 2 to 3 years from now, if you could project into the future?
Look, our thesis has been that money is changing whether we like it or not. And that means that all financial infrastructure has to get upgraded. That means that every institution that deals with money, earns money, sends money, spends money, needs to upgrade their systems. And so we feel like Rain is best positioned to take advantage of that opportunity and be the partner that most companies will look to say, hey, I need support with this. How can we turn it on? And a big part of what we've been focusing on for the last several years and even now is about that breadth of use cases, right? So Rain has been about how do we add as many different use cases to our infrastructure as possible so that we can demonstrate the efficacy of the actual technology and be able to drive value for our customers immediately.
That's very exciting. I know there's a lot more that you have to come between now and October. I can't wait to keep hearing about the great news that's coming out of the Rain team. Farouk, thank you so much. For all of you, Farouk Malik, CEO and co-founder of Rain. Big partnership announcement with Western Union. We're seeing this convergence of TradFi and DeFi continue. There's going to be more to happen in Las Vegas in October. In the meantime, back over to you.
Next week here on Wall Street, we will get the latest quarterly results from Dow Components, Home Depot, and Walmart, plus the latest figures from Target and TJX on Wednesday, and the team from John Deere on Thursday. We also get the latest Fed minutes from the month of July's FOMC meeting and flash PMIs crossing the wire next Friday as well. Have a great weekend, one and all. Enjoy all the NFL preseason action coming up. Football is officially back. Thank you for watching today and all week's editions of Taking Stock from the New York Stock Exchange. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.